Before the name Rothschild echoed in the halls of power across Europe, before their wealth shaped wars, built industries, and outlived empires, there was just a narrow street in Frankfurt, Germany. It was called Judengasse, the Jewish alley, and it was here in 1744 that Meyer Amschel Rothschild was born. This wasn't just a poor neighborhood, it was a walled-in ghetto, a world confined by prejudice and tight stone corridors. Over 3,000 Jews lived cramped into this small quarter, where Christians prohibited Jews from walking the streets on Sundays, entering parks or coffee houses, or forming gatherings larger than 2 people. The gates of Judengasse were physically locked every night and during Christian holidays, sealing in generations of people who had learned to survive in silence. For Meyer, the early years were harsh, but his family had expectations. They wanted him to become a rabbi, to dedicate his life to scholarship and religion, and that might have happened, if fate hadn't intervened. The sudden death of both his parents forced Meyer to abandon his religious studies and instead find work to support himself and his siblings. He entered an apprenticeship at the Oppenheimer Bank, a well-known Jewish banking house in Hanover. It was here, not in a synagogue, that Meyer first discovered his true calling, not theology, but finance. At the bank, he learned about foreign currencies, commodity exchange, and the value of ancient coins from Rome, Greece, Persia, and Byzantium, objects that held immense appeal to European aristocrats. But Meyer wasn't just a coin collector. He quickly grasped that these coins were a gateway into elite society. European nobles weren't just buying artifacts, they were buying status, history, and prestige. Meyer used this to his advantage, becoming a dealer in rare coins, and before long, he had developed a reputation as an expert among collectors and nobles alike. His turning point came when Crown Prince Wilhelm of Hesse-Kassel, one of the richest men in Europe, took notice. Impressed by Meyer's financial acumen and discretion, he appointed him a court factor, a title granted to Jews who managed finances for royalty. This position gave Meyer a seat at the financial table of power, unprecedented for a Jew at the time. Now free to operate outside the Judengasse walls, Meyer began to expand his business aggressively. But he wasn't content to merely grow. He was planning for something far greater, a dynasty. And so began the most important strategic decision of his life. Meyer had 5 sons, and instead of keeping them close, he sent them across Europe, to London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt, to build financial outposts in Europe's most powerful capitals. While Meyer Amschel Rothschild laid the foundation, it was his strategic mind that turned a family business into a pan-European empire. His genius wasn't just in understanding money, it was in understanding power and how to move within it without becoming its enemy. Each of Meyer's 5 sons, Amschel in Frankfurt, Salomon in Vienna, Nathan in London, Karl in Naples, and James in Paris, was dispatched with a singular mission: establish relationships with ruling families, invest in government bonds, and always protect the family's independence. This strategy wasn't just business, it was insurance. By embedding themselves across 5 major European powers, the Rothschilds avoided dependency on any one kingdom. If revolution broke out in one, the others could provide support. This wasn't just financial diversification, it was geopolitical hedging on a family level. Even more critical was Meyer's instruction to keep the business within the family. Only male descendants could inherit wealth. This led to intermarriage among cousins, mirroring dynasties like the Habsburgs. Between 1824 and 1877, 30 out of 36 Rothschild marriages were within the family. This ensured that wealth, control, and knowledge stayed tightly knit, shielded from external influence. But it wasn't just about protecting wealth. The Rothschilds expanded aggressively into commercial paper, currency exchange, precious metals, and government bonds. They created an unrivaled communication system using private couriers that outpaced national governments. This network would soon play a critical role in history's most pivotal wars. Between 1792 and 1815, Europe was plunged into chaos. The French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars tore across the continent, destabilizing monarchies, ruining currencies, and creating a desperate need for liquidity. For the Rothschilds, this wasn't disaster, it was opportunity. In Paris, Meyer's son Jacob financed Napoleon's war effort. Meanwhile, in London, Nathan Rothschild backed the British side, led by Lord Wellington. Two brothers, each embedded in opposing camps, seemingly divided, yet strategically united. Nathan's edge wasn't just capital, it was information. He invested heavily in a private courier system that delivered war updates faster than any government. When Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo in 1815, Nathan knew a full day before the British government. He used this time to buy British government bonds at depressed prices, then sold them after victory was confirmed, reaping one of the largest profits in financial history. This wasn't gambling, it was strategic market manipulation based on superior intelligence. It cemented Nathan's status as one of the most powerful men in Britain. But it also drew suspicion and resentment. In France, where Napoleon had granted Jews unprecedented rights, Jacob's pivot away from Napoleon was seen as betrayal. The Rothschilds, now symbols of capitalism, stateless wealth, and Jewish influence, became scapegoats in times of economic distress, a resentment that would follow them for generations. Still, the financial network was stronger than ever. The Rothschilds had proven that they could outpace armies, outsmart monarchs, and profit in both war and peace. As Europe moved into the industrial age, so did the Rothschilds. They shifted from finance alone to owning and operating infrastructure. Their targets were railways, mining, and industrial production. In 1815, Nathan secured rights to the Almaden mercury mines in Spain, granting the family a near-global monopoly on the element used to refine gold and silver. This gave them influence over both currency and industrial production. They expanded further into coal, iron, non-ferrous metals, and eventually, oil. The Rothschilds held early stakes in companies that would become Royal Dutch Shell, Rio Tinto, and other global giants. Their investments weren't just European. In America, they backed industrial titans like John D. Rockefeller, providing financing to consolidate Standard Oil. Their connections extended to Jacob Schiff, an American banker born in a Rothschild-controlled house in Frankfurt. Schiff advised Rockefeller on business strategy and helped him secure rebates from railroads, giving Standard Oil the competitive advantage it needed to dominate the industry. While others invested in factories, the Rothschilds were building global supply chains, market control, and monopolistic networks that would shape the 19th and 20th centuries. By the mid-1800s, the Rothschilds were no longer just bankers. They were empire brokers. In 1871, after France's crushing defeat by Prussia, it was the Rothschilds who financed two massive loans to stabilize the French government. Meanwhile, in London, they provided the British government with £4 million to secure a controlling stake in the Suez Canal Company, a move that made the British Empire's connection to India faster and cheaper, and secured the Rothschilds' central role in imperial logistics. In Africa, they backed Cecil Rhodes, whose diamond empire became De Beers, another company under Rothschild financial control. They were behind the expansionist policies of Britain, funding imperial expeditions and economic colonization across the continent. The Rothschild name was whispered in royal courts, cabinet meetings, and parliaments. Their approval became a prerequisite for major diplomatic and financial decisions. They were not elected, they did not rule, but they were powerful in ways that no monarch or minister could ever be. Despite their global reach, the Rothschilds remained deeply committed to the Jewish community. They funded Jewish education, synagogues, hospitals, libraries, and homes for the poor, establishing more than 30 charitable foundations in Frankfurt alone. Their influence extended to politics. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration, expressing British support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine, was addressed directly to Lionel Walter Rothschild, not a government minister, but a figurehead of Jewish society in Britain. The Rothschilds had long supported the Zionist cause through quiet donations and land acquisitions in the Levant. Simultaneously, they were shaping British and Austrian nobility. Meyer's sons became barons of the Austrian Empire. In Britain, one Rothschild became the first Jewish member of parliament, another became the first Jew elevated to the peerage. They collected art, sponsored scientific expeditions, and donated rare collections to museums, enriching European cultural and intellectual life with their wealth. But even dynasties fall. The first to collapse was Naples, where Italian unification and Garibaldi's revolution in 1860 made the Rothschilds enemies of the new nationalist regime. The Naples branch shut down by 1863. Then Frankfurt, the original home of Meyer Rothschild, closed in 1901 due to the absence of a male heir. The Vienna branch faced a more violent end. With the rise of Nazi Germany, Rothschild family members were imprisoned, their assets seized. One member, Louis Nathaniel, was only released after paying a massive ransom. In Paris, the branch was briefly revived after World War II, but in 1982, it was nationalized by the socialist government under François Mitterrand, ending over a century of Rothschild banking in France. By the 20th century, only the London branch survived intact. The family's strategy, liquid assets, mobility, secrecy, had worked. Today, the Rothschild family still exists, but no longer as a single dynasty of kings behind thrones. Instead, they are a network of investors, bankers, philanthropists, and business leaders. In 2008, after nearly 2 centuries of separation, the family's various holdings were consolidated under Rothschild & Co., based in France and the UK. The company now manages over $100 billion in assets, reports billions in annual revenue, and operates in over 40 countries. They own wineries, real estate, private equity firms, and continue to play a role in global finance, quietly, carefully, and often behind the scenes. Yet their story reminds us of something deeper. Had Mayer Amschel Rothschild's parents not died early, had he become a rabbi as intended, had he never entered finance, the map of Europe, the outcome of wars, the shape of industries, and even the creation of Israel might look very different today. For better or worse, the Rothschilds were never just bankers. They were architects of the modern world, and their legacy is still being written.